Welcome to the deep dive. Today, you've brought us two really thought-provoking pieces from Jaime Hoerricks.
That's right. They explore this fascinating intersection of diet and health.
Specifically, we're going to unpack their insights on, navigating picky eating in autistic individuals.
And also their personal experience with how diet might be influencing their hormone replacement therapy, their HRT journey.
Yeah. And just to be clear, our mission here isn't to give out medical advice or anything.
No, absolutely not.
We really just want to dig into these ideas, see where their personal observations, connect with the science, maybe uncover some surprising links.
Absolutely. What's immediately compelling about Jaime's work is how their own lived experience really fuels these explorations. It leads to questions that, honestly, they deserve a closer look.
Exactly. So let's jump into the first piece. Autistic Picky Eaters Explained. Right away, Jaime tackles this common issue, the selective eating in the autistic community. But then they introduce this really intriguing idea, histamine intolerance, as a potentially significant, but maybe often overlooked underlying factor.
Right. And they also offer a pretty strong critique of a lot of mainstream nutritional advice.
Yeah, they do.
And share the very specific dietary approach that ended up working for them.
What's fascinating here is how it challenges what we often think of as established nutritional wisdom.
Definitely. This piece immediately makes you think maybe those blanket dietary recommendations just aren't universally applicable.
Especially for individuals with unique sensitivities, right?
Exactly.
And the key takeaways from this first piece, as I see it, are really maybe threefold.
Okay.
First, just the limitations of that one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition.
For sure.
Second, this potential connection, histamine intolerance and selective eating in autistic individuals. That could be a real game changer for some people.
It really could.
And finally, we get this very concrete example of a highly restrictive diet, high fat, low carb, and strictly histamine-free. It's definitely, outside the usual recommendation.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It serves as a powerful illustration, doesn't it? How a highly personalized strategy, one driven by identifying and addressing specific sensitivities, can lead to really significant improvements in well-being. And what's interesting here, too, is the potential overlap you might see between mast cell activation, which is central to histamine intolerance, and the sensory sensitivities often experienced by autistic individuals. Could there be a shared biological mechanism at play there?
Oh, that's a great point. A connection I hadn't immediately considered, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's shift our focus to the second piece, fueling change. How my diet may be accelerating my HRT journey.
Right.
This essay takes a different but sort of related path. It focuses on Jaime's personal experience with HRT and the surprisingly rapid physical and emotional changes they've noticed.
Yeah, that speed is really striking.
And the core idea here is that their long-term ketogenic anti-inflammatory diet might be playing a really significant role in this accelerated transition.
This essay raises a really important question, I think, about how our metabolic state might interact with medical interventions like HRT. The reported speed of these changes is certainly striking. It really makes you wonder about the underlying mechanisms.
Yeah, me too. And the key takeaways from the second piece seem to be, 1, the unexpected speed of these changes during HRT.
Definitely.
2, the proposed link between a ketogenic diet and this acceleration, possibly through optimizing how the body handles fats, lipids, and reducing inflammation.
Right, the lipid metabolism and inflammation pieces.
And third, a really important call for more research into what seems to be a largely uncharted area.
Absolutely. It really highlights a potential blind spot in our understanding, doesn't it? How diet might influence hormonal transitions. And it underscores the need for a more focused scientific investigation. So, if lipid metabolism is key, and ketogenic diets drastically alter that, could this also impact the metabolism of the exogenous hormones themselves, maybe leading to higher bioavailable levels, but maybe for a shorter duration?
Huh. That's a fascinating question to consider. Okay, let's really dig deeper now into that first piece, Autistic Picky Eaters Explained.
Right.
It's crucial, I think, to understand Jaime's background here. They identify as autistic. They have a history of sensory issues that have really impacted their eating throughout their life. Plus, they hold certifications in exercise nutrition. So this isn't just, purely anecdotal. It's informed by a level of nutritional understanding.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
That combination of lived experience and nutritional knowledge gives their observations a unique kind of validity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's coming from someone who has personally navigated these challenges and has actively sought out information and solutions.
And they really don't hold back when critiquing mainstream nutrition.
No, they don't.
The article challenges some commonly held beliefs, like the idea that carbs are the body's primary fastest-burning fuel source, or that sugar's okay in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime suggests that a lot of these recommendations are influenced by, well, financial interests, which is a strong statement,
It is.
and points to the surprisingly limited nutritional education doctors get. Remember that average.
Okay.
Just 23.9 contact hours in medical school.
Yeah, that number is startling. Less than a typical college course.
Right. This critique of mainstream nutrition is significant then. It encourages us to be maybe more critical consumers of dietary info.
To acknowledge that maybe that lack of extensive nutritional training in med school could contribute to generalized and potentially, ineffective advice.
Yeah.
The point about financial interests influencing studies is also a critical lens, I think, to view dietary recommendations through.
Right, and Jaime mentions that those popular diets, low-carb, whole food, Mediterranean, paleo, vegan, gluten-free, none of them worked for them. And in some cases, actually made things worse. Which really highlights the point that even these seemingly healthy diets can contain foods that trigger sensitivities, like histamine in things like avocado and spinach.
This really underscores the limitations of those broad dietary categories, doesn't it? What might be great for one person can be really detrimental for another because of these highly individual sensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that even widely recommended diets fail to provide relief really emphasizes the need for a much more personalized approach.
And this leads directly to their personal discovery of histamine intolerance. They describe it quite vividly.
Oof.
What was it? A truck with a flamethrower moving its way down my digestive path.
Oof. Yeah, that visceral description really brings the impact of histamine intolerance to life. It emphasizes this isn't just mild discomfort. It can be a significant source of real pain and distress.
You really feel it. And Jaime's solution was a pretty radical shift.
Yeah.
A time-restricted, high-fat, low-carb, histamine-free diet.
Very specific.
And this led to them becoming pain-free and medication-free, which is, that's a remarkable outcome.
Truly remarkable.
The diet itself is quite specific.
Right.
Lots of butter, 6 eggs a day, limited almonds and walnuts for carbs, baked chicken for protein, plus electrolyte supplementation.
Mm-hmm.
They even have very specific meal timing, first meal at 3:30 a.m., last at 12:00 p.m.
Wow.
And the rationale behind it is fascinating, managing energy levels specifically for an autistic brain.
This level of dietary restriction and those specific food choices,
Mm-hmm.
it really highlights the severity of their sensitivities and the lengths they had to go to find relief.
Yeah.
The time-restricted eating linked to energy management for the autistic brain, that's a novel and interesting aspect. It suggests dietary interventions might also impact neurological function, maybe?
It definitely underscores just how personalized dietary needs can be. And Jaime is very upfront about the challenges, right?
Oh, yeah.
The diet is described as boring, repetitive. There was an initial struggle breaking a sugar addiction. Social situations become much trickier. Most adult beverages are off the table due to high histamine, though they do note distilled spirits are maybe better tolerated in small amounts.
These are really important practical considerations. Such a restrictive diet can have significant impacts on social life, just the simple enjoyment of food.
Totally.
And the mention of sugar addiction also highlights the physiological and psychological components of making big dietary changes. It reminds me of some difficulties patients face with, say, highly specific elimination diets for allergies. It's a huge lifestyle adjustment.
For sure. And knowing that a high-fat diet often raises red flags with doctors,
Right.
Jaime addresses potential medical skepticism head-on. They talk about the difference between risk and odds.
That's important.
They point out their clinical nutritionist closely monitored their labs, which actually improved despite high LDL cholesterol levels. They even get into the nuances of LDL particle size, explaining not all LDL is created equal, and standard cholesterol screenings might not paint the whole picture, especially for someone on this kind of diet.
This is a crucial point when discussing conventional medical advice. Jaime's experience underscores the importance of looking beyond just the standard lipid panel numbers
Yeah.
and considering more nuanced analyses, especially in the context of specific dietary interventions like a keto diet.
Yeah.
The distinction they draw between risk and odds is also vital for informed decision-making.
Absolutely. Finally, in this first piece, Jaime touches on a really important potential link, that identifying and addressing histamine intolerance could be key to improving behavioral issues in some individuals.
Hmm.
The logic is pretty clear.
Hmm.
It's incredibly hard to function well if you're constantly dealing with significant digestive discomfort.
This connection between gut health and behavior is definitely gaining increasing recognition in various fields.
It seems like it.
If digestive distress is a significant source of discomfort and inflammation, addressing it through diet could indeed have positive ripple effects on overall well-being and behavior.
Makes sense.
Now, while digestive discomfort can certainly impact mood, are there studies specifically linking, say, histamine levels to behavioral patterns in autistic individuals? Or is this more of an observed correlation at this point? It feels like an area ripe for more investigation.
That's a great question. And yeah, it highlights the need for more research to understand the specifics of that connection. Okay, let's move on to the second piece, fueling change and this intriguing diet-HRT connection.
Right.
What really jumps out immediately is the unexpectedly rapid pace of changes Jaime experienced after starting HRT.
Yeah, that's the hook.
They describe significant shifts, skin, fat redistribution, emotional well-being happening within weeks, which is considerably faster than the typical timelines doctors usually outline, right? Often months, even years.
This accelerated timeline is definitely the central point of intrigue in the essay. It immediately makes you wonder, okay, what underlying factors could be contributing to such a swift and pronounced response to HRT?
And the essay proposes that Jaime's long-term quasi-ketogenic anti-inflammatory diet, which, remember, is driven by plant sensitivities and histamine intolerance, might be the key. They hypothesize this specific dietary approach could be responsible for significantly amplifying the effects of HRT.
The hypothesis that a particular dietary pattern could enhance HRT effects is quite novel. It certainly warrants further exploration, suggesting our nutritional status might play a much more active role in hormonal transitions than we currently appreciate.
Yeah.
Though, while the keto diet is an interesting hypothesis, could there be other factors? Maybe individual variations in metabolism, or even the specific formulation or delivery method of the HRT being used.
Those are definitely important variables to consider, absolutely. To understand this potential link, Jaime explains how ketogenic diets impact the body. It's this fundamental metabolic shift, right?
Right, from carbs to fats for fuel.
Exactly. From primarily using carbs to using fats, which leads to producing ketone bodies. This has significant effects on lipid metabolism.
Which is absolutely crucial.
Because steroid hormones like estrogen are derived from cholesterol and rely on lipid transport. They even reference a study, Furlan et al. From 2004,
Oh, yeah.
suggesting saturated fats can actually alter hormone transport and receptor sensitivity.
This connection to lipid metabolism is indeed crucial. We know hormones like estrogen are cholesterol-derived. So a diet rich in healthy fats, like one Jaime describes, could potentially provide more building blocks for these hormones, though, as you said, highly speculative without more research.
Right.
And that reference to the Furlan study provides a potential scientific basis, however preliminary, for how dietary fats could influence these processes, hormone transport, receptor function.
So the hypothesis is that this long-term ketogenic diet might create a really interesting synergy with HRT. Jaime suggests the diet could enhance estrogen bioavailability by supporting optimal levels of hormone transport proteins, things like SHBG, sex hormone-binding globulin, and albumin.
Right, the carriers.
And potentially improve hormone receptor sensitivity by reducing inflammation via those ketone bodies like beta-hydroxybutyrate. They even draw an analogy to the rapid changes we often see in a well-nourished pregnant body.
That analogy to pregnancy is actually quite insightful, I think. It highlights how a body in a state of, let's say, optimal nutrition and metabolic balance might be far more receptive to hormonal shifts.
Yeah.
Whether those are endogenous, like in pregnancy, or exogenous through HRT, the proposed mechanisms enhance bioavailability, improved receptor sensitivity due to less inflammation, they're biologically plausible, definitely warrant investigation.
What's really striking, though, is the point Jaime makes about the significant gap in the existing research.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Despite ketogenic diets becoming more popular and more individuals undergoing HRT, there seems to be a real lack of dedicated studies looking specifically at how these two might interact, particularly within the trans community. It really shines a light on a potential blind spot in our medical understanding.
This lack of dedicated research is a significant takeaway. It underscores how certain areas of health, particularly those concerning marginalized communities or maybe less conventional approaches, can unfortunately be understudied.
Yeah.
Leaving individuals to often rely on personal observations, anecdotal evidence, like Janie's experience.
This then leads to James' suggestion that the common, often very general advice to just eat healthy based on a typical Western diet model might not actually be optimal for everyone on HRT.
Right. Bit too generic, maybe.
They propose that prioritizing anti-inflammatory diets and ensuring adequate calorie intake, getting your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, could potentially lead to improved HRT outcomes for those maybe experiencing slower progress. But again, important to remember, this is presented as a personal observation, not formal medical advice.
It's a very thought-provoking observation, though, clearly rooted in their personal experience and their understanding of these underlying metabolic processes.
Yeah.
It definitely encourages a more nuanced consideration of dietary recommendations for individuals undergoing HRT,
Yeah.
potentially moving beyond those very generic guidelines to more tailored, individualized approaches.
And all of this culminates in a strong call for future research. Jaime really emphasizes the urgent need for well-designed studies
Absolutely.
that specifically explore the impact of various dietary patterns on hormone bioavailability, receptor sensitivity, the overall speed of physical changes during HRT, with a crucial focus on ensuring inclusivity for trans populations in that research.
This call to action is absolutely crucial. Rigorous scientific investigation is really what's needed to determine if there is indeed a causal link between specific diets like keto and HRT outcomes.
Yeah.
Such research could have really significant implications for improving the experiences and well-being of individuals undergoing hormonal transitions.
Jaime concludes the piece with a very personal anecdote, expressing their own surprise and a sense of wonder at the rapid physical changes they've experienced, mentioning breast development, for example, and directly linking it in their own mind to their long-term dietary habits. It makes for a very personal and quite compelling conclusion.
That personal reflection really brings the entire discussion full circle, doesn't it? It underscores the profound impact these changes have had on Jaime's life.
Yeah.
And really reinforces that central idea that diet might be playing a much more significant, yet often overlooked, role in the HRT journey.
So to bring our deep dive to a close today, we've explored Jaime Hoerricks' fascinating insights into, first, the potential for histamine intolerance being a really significant factor in picky eating among autistic individuals,
Right.
and how a highly restrictive yet personalized diet can be a successful strategy for managing it, at least in some cases. Then we delved into that very intriguing hypothesis that a long-term ketogenic diet might substantially influence and potentially accelerate the effects of HRT.
Right. Although it's clear, as we've said, that this is an area where a great deal more rigorous research is desperately needed.
Absolutely. You've really highlighted the key insights from both of Jaime's pieces, showing how personal experience, when combined with thoughtful observation and some nutritional knowledge, can raise really important questions.
And even challenge some existing paradigms, maybe, in both our understanding of autism and gender-affirming care.
And considering your interest, listener, in gaining knowledge quickly but thoroughly, you've now had the chance to explore a really fascinating, though again, largely personal perspective on just how deeply interconnected our diet and various aspects of our overall health can truly be. It really challenges a lot of conventional wisdom and underscores the crucial importance of recognizing individual responses to food, to lifestyle choices.
What really stands out is that consistent emphasis on individual variability and the exciting potential for highly personalized approaches, not just for dietary management for specific conditions, but maybe also for optimizing the effectiveness of medical interventions like HRT.
So here's a final thought for you to really chew on. Given Jaime's very compelling personal experience and the clear gaps that exist in the current scientific research, what other areas within health and medical interventions might be significantly influenced by our dietary choices in ways that are currently under-investigated or perhaps even completely unrecognized?
That's a big question.
Could your own individual dietary habits be playing a far more significant role in your overall well-being than you currently realize? And what might be the potential benefits of exploring this further? Perhaps even initiating a discussion with your own healthcare providers about your specific needs and your own personal observations. It's definitely something to think about.